Hi, it's Alison from the Law School Toolbox. Are you applying for a 2L BigLaw position? Well, we've got ex-BigLaw recruiter Sadie Jones here with us to talk about that timeline and why you might need to apply even earlier than your school's OCI process. Welcome, Sadie.
Thanks for having me back.
Oh, my pleasure. Well, just for some background, tell me why we're even talking about this. What's going on here?
Well, I think that in the last 2 years, the timeline for 2L recruiting has continually moved up. And I have to say, I was sort of a skeptic 2 years ago that this was going to continue. But at this point, I'm a believer. So I wouldn't tell my students, oh, you can wait for OCI if you want to. I'd really say you need to get ahead of this. And this is just how it is at this point.
Okay, and when are firms opening these positions?
Now. So we're
Okay.
talking in March. And I've already seen 2L positions open. I would say it's not all exactly the same, but generally it's happening March, April, and May at the latest.
Okay, so they're really doing this even before the schools are starting their OCI.
Way before. And I know that this is hard because obviously students are focused on classes and the timeline seems absurd. And some people are looking for their 1L summer jobs still. And we're talking about the same population of people that now are looking at 2L jobs, but that is what it is. Now, the jobs are open. It doesn't mean that everyone's applying or that they're going to be filled in the next 2 weeks or something, but they are available to send your application in, so some people will.
Right, and at this point, 1Ls only have one semester typically of grades, so that's interesting. Do you think that they might wait in some cases to see second semester grades?
Yeah, I think if you're a superstar and it's very clear that you're doing really well in school, I think they could make you an offer before they see second semester grades. But I think for most people, they may look at your application and consider some people to interview. But I think similar to kind of how 1L recruiting has always been, which is that a lot of times they'll talk to you before you have your grades in, and then you just submit your grades and they kind of look at it in January, even if you talk to them in December. Similar here. I think a lot of them will have to wait for grades.
Yeah, I remember that from the 1L recruiting. I think I applied December 1st, and then I got a few people asking, and I sent a few grades, and then they're like, oh, we want to see the whole transcript, that kind of thing. So yeah, it probably depends. But if you're top of your class at a very top school, after one semester, most likely they're going to say, you know what, we might just snap this person up now.
Exactly. So I think it will depend, but I want to put this out there because there will be people that are applying now in March.
Right. And how many people or what percentage do you think are firms filling before they even get to OCI?
So my understanding is that 50% is sort of an average for how much of the class has been filled before OCI, but there's going to be a range. It's going to depend on the firm, and we don't know for sure what's going to happen this year, but that is what's happened the last couple of years.
Right. So I think the message here is if somebody thinks that they're going to be aiming for this 2L summer position, the time to really get serious about this seems to be now. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't want to alarm anyone. And not everyone is going to apply right at the beginning in the same way that not everyone applies for 1L jobs right at the beginning either. So it's not that there won't be any spots. It's not that they won't hire anyone from OCI. It's just that I think the bar is going to be very high for where you are. And so I think if you're middle of the road, then you need to definitely be applying earlier.
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting development because for so long it was just like, oh, you show up to OCI, that's what you need to focus on. For people who aren't familiar, that's sort of on campus interviewing where firms actually physically came. And then COVID started changing that a little bit and they were interviewing remotely and things like that. And I guess at some point, firms decided, hey, if we can do these remote interviews and whatnot, why are we even going to fill 100% of our class at these schools? Like maybe we can talk to other people in a different way.
Exactly. So I think that is what kicked this off. I don't think there's a set rule that it's going to continue or it's going to be exactly the same every single year. But I think the reality is that if firms see other firms are doing it and are filling their classes this way, they feel like they don't want to be behind. and it's a cycle where they have to do it also. So I just think that the reality is that it's risky to sort of wait to start the process until OCI.
Right, for sure. I mean, I think the process is what it is. So if you
Hmm.
are going to be in that process, you just want to be familiar with what you need to be doing. And so that you don't wake up 6 months from now and say, oh, I thought now was when I should be looking at this and that ship has already sailed.
Exactly. And if you've sort of made a conscious decision that you cannot be applying now because you need to focus on school, and obviously your grades are most important, that's like a conscious decision you've made. But you should go in with the information that that's a little bit of a riskier move.
Right. And in some ways, I think it maybe opens up opportunities from people from schools that are outside of the kind of tier of OCI type schools to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to get my resume in there and they can look at me along with everybody else early versus, oh, they're going to go recruit at Harvard. And if they have any spaces left, like maybe I can fill one of them.
Exactly. So I agree. I think this is an opportunity and you can be a go-getter here and look at it as a positive rather than to make you anxious about needing to be doing it right this second. I think you can say, "Hey, I can get in early and get myself seen in a way that I might not have been able to during a very traditional OCI process."
Right, because even at top schools, I remember people, for whatever reason, just didn't have the opportunity to interview with the firm they wanted, and then they had to go track down the recruiter in the hallway or whatnot and say, like, I really, really, really want to get on your radar. And that was kind of the only way to do it. So this democratizes the process in a sense.
I think so too. I also think that you could say to yourself, I'm not ready to apply to everything, or I'm not totally ready to interview yet, but I want to start making connections and reaching out. So I think you could just say, hey, I'm going to start networking earlier, go to events earlier, because they are all having events earlier too, is the other thing to keep in mind. So I would say you can hit this at different levels.
And do you have any thoughts on if you are at a school that does OCI and you know that a certain firm you're interested in is going to be coming to that? Should you go ahead and apply, or is that a downside? Is it an upside? I can see arguments all over the place for that.
Yeah, I could see it going either way. I think it would depend whether you think you have a good shot at the firm,
Yeah.
you're a really strong candidate. But I think if you're not really sure, then I would probably apply earlier. If you feel very confident about it, then maybe you wait for OCI and it won't really make a difference. But I don't think you're going to be in a worse situation from applying earlier.
Yeah, I was just imagining if I apply and they say no, but I would also imagine a lot of these firms, if they know they're coming to your campus, they might just say, hey, we'll talk to you then.
I think there is a lot of that, and there always has been a lot of that sort of putting people off. Like, sometimes you'd meet somebody at a career fair, and not be sure, but say, "Oh, we'd love to meet you at OCI down the road."
Right.
So I think it would be similar.
Yeah, that's what I would imagine.
Also, if it's a flat out no, I think it would have been a no later too.
That's fair. I mean, if they're like, no, absolutely not, your grades
Yeah,
are not what we're looking for, it's like, well, you just opened up a slot for yourself at OCI for someone who might be more suitable. So
exactly. Or maybe it's if you really improve spring semester and we don't have your grades yet, you can
true.
reapply.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That would be valid saying, hey, I know that you guys rejected me because my first semester grades
Mhm.
weren't the best. But as you can see, I had a real upward trend second semester. I mean, I think a lot of firms would be open to that.
I think so too. And I wouldn't say that all the time, but in this situation, I think if your grades aren't in yet and you feel pretty confident, I think it's worth bringing up with them if you feel like grades are the main issue.
Right. Yeah. If it's clear that they're looking for a 3.5 and you have 3.0 after the first semester, that's not really that close. But
Or it just didn't go well and
yeah.
they didn't like you, then they may just say thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk a little more broadly about what you're seeing in the market. Obviously, the economy, I think it's fair to say, is a little shaky. Definitely a lot of movement up and down, a lot of unpredictability. I mean, are firms reacting to this?
I think that ever since the financial crash of 2009, firms have always tried to be a little on the conservative side with hiring. And there'd been other bubbles where they did this, but I think that really changed the market completely. So I do think that they react to those situations by saying we're going to be conservative and hire smaller classes. Now, I don't think there's like a drastic change, especially in big law. But I think that you are going to find that the criteria is going to be higher. They may be fine with a smaller class, or they may say, oh, we're looking for this number, but if we get fewer, that's fine too.
Right.
And the other thing to keep in mind that I realized was that a lot of people who have been laid off from government jobs or had summer government jobs and are very strong candidates and now are in the market are competing with people for jobs they wouldn't have before. So it's just something to keep in mind that there are more people looking for jobs now.
Right. Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, definitely if there are strong candidates in the market for kind of entry level, first to third year associate, suddenly if I'm a partner, I might be thinking, you know what, maybe I don't need such a big summer class. Maybe I can hire a
Hmm.
couple of these people and they've already got experience. So yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it's, going to be like an apocalypse for class sizes. But I also don't think it's going to be kind of a huge boom year where they're like, we'll hire anybody, you know?
Exactly. So I think what to keep in mind in terms of your overall strategy is don't just apply to reaches. I would
Right.
be probably pretty realistic and conservative in terms of where you think you can actually get an offer.
Yeah, and I think in some ways applying earlier before OCI when you're going to do OCI could actually be helpful for that because you can really see what kind of response you're getting. So if you're not getting any responses that are positive, that might tell you like, okay, I might need to scale back my OCI bids into things that are really in my wheelhouse or that I'm overqualified for versus going out there and saying, well, oh, these are my dream jobs. I'm only going to apply to these jobs when you haven't gotten a lot of positive feedback.
I totally agree. And I think it gives you more time to figure it out. And like we always talk about, is it that you're not getting initial interviews? Are you getting some interviews and not getting offers? You can see like where you're going wrong in the process to see what you may need to adjust with plenty of time in the season left.
Right. And I think that's, again, kind of a benefit that if you do get those first round interviews, you don't get callbacks. Okay, is there something going on in your interviewing that you need to work with career services? You need to work with a coach. You need to work with us on what is happening versus you're sending them all out and you're getting all no's or just getting ignored. And it's like, okay, is that your grades? Is there a problem with your resume? What is it that's going on here?
Exactly. So I think that's something to keep in mind. But as I always say, grades in school comes first because that's going to affect everything. So I do think you have to be realistic. What can you do while still in your, important spring semester?
Oh, for sure, because those are the grades you're gonna be essentially riding on if this doesn't work out early, and it's probably not gonna work out early unless you already did really well first semester.
Exactly. But I think that even if you have to work really hard at school and you're busy, you can probably find time to do some type of job work throughout the spring semester. So that's what I'd ask yourself is what's realistic?
Yeah, I'd say, at a minimum, you probably need to go set an appointment up, talk to career services, get their take on what you should be thinking about, what you should be applying for, get a read on your resume, your cover letter, your writing sample, all these things, and then carve out 3 or 4 hours on a weekend afternoon to actually maybe the first weekend is you generate your list of where you're going to apply and you have to go to these different websites presumably now to figure out if they're taking applications. Basically, you got to figure out where you're going to find these jobs and then maybe the next weekend you actually apply for them. So it doesn't have to be this incredibly overwhelming process, but I do think doing some of it now is probably going to pay off later.
Exactly. And I would take advantage of any events that you see on campus with firms or opportunities for mock interviews, things like that. Make sure you're talking to your career services about what's going on because they're going to be always the most updated in terms of when firms are posting their jobs and how the market's looking. So make sure you're in touch with them whether or not you think they're helping you, because I hear mixed things at different schools. I still always say that it's important to have a good relationship with them and to at least be trying. So take advantage of all of those opportunities that you get as a law student because your school wants you to find a job. That's for
Right.
sure.
Oh, they love it if you find a big law job. That's
Yeah,
like their dream for you. Whether you like that dream or not, that is their dream for you.
exactly. So you might as well take advantage of that and get whatever you can out of it. And so at the very least, all of your documents should be updated at this point, and you should continue to update them as things change. But if you have your 1L job secured, make sure it's on your resume. You know that that's what you're going to be doing this summer. So at least make sure that you have things available to give people if the opportunity arises.
Right. And I think if you go to one of those networking events, bring some copies of your resume on paper. And if anyone expresses any interest in talking with you further, be like, oh, I'd love to give you my resume.
Exactly. Make sure your LinkedIn is updated and
Oh,
matches
yeah.
everything.
Yeah, for sure. We've seen some resumes recently with law students, and we're like, where's your LinkedIn? And they're like, I don't have one. We have episodes on that, I think. So you should have a LinkedIn at this point. And I would say if you don't, that's probably one of the biggest things to prioritize is just getting at least that basic profile up with a professional looking photo with the basic information that's on your resume, because that needs to match.
And you can take a professional looking photo now with your phone
Yeah.
and another person helping you, and that's all you need. So much stuff can just be done yourself and look very polished. So make sure that it's available, easy to find for the firm, and matches everything on your resume.
Yeah, I mean, if I were thinking about, okay, I'm a busy student, I have a lot going on, but I want to try to get this done, I would be thinking one weekend day, figure out what I'm going to do. What is my basic process? What is my basic plan? Next weekend day, set up my LinkedIn if I don't have that, just finalize my resume. And then maybe the next weekend is actually start applying to jobs. It doesn't have to be this crazy, overwhelming thing.
Exactly. And I think the reality is it's not that there won't be any hiring once the summer comes and it's more actual OCI time. It's just that ideally, if you could get a job before then, you'd be in a better position. But if it doesn't work out, it's not like all of this was a waste because it got you all of this practice and it got you more information and you'll be ready for the OCI season also. I think that it has to be like a two-prong approach.
Yeah, I think anything you can do that gets you more familiar with the process is definitely going to help. I mean, I remember showing up to my first interview at OCI, and it was the summer in New York, and it was super hot, and I'm on the subway, and I'm like sweating everywhere. And that was not the greatest start. That if I'd had a little more background and experience, I might have been able to roll with that a little better and not be like, oh my gosh, what have I just gotten into?
Exactly. And just having practice, I think, just makes everything easier and you get less nervous.
Yeah, exactly. You can go into it being like, okay, I know I've done this before. I know the type of things they're going to be asking me. And if they ask you something in one of these early interviews that you're not prepared for, use that as a learning opportunity. Say, hey,
Hmm.
I did not have a great answer to that question. I need to work on that answer.
And it's better to know that in April than it is to find that out in July. You
Right.
know,
I mean, the old school OCI process is like you do multiple interviews in a single day. I think it's spread out maybe a little more now that some of them are virtual. But if you are bombing interviews one, two, three, and four, and that's all before lunch, that's not great.
exactly. So I think I agree that this gives you a lot of time to sort of work on things and strategize and come up with a plan.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as we talked about, this probably won't go on forever. There'll probably come some other shifts. Who knows? We never know. We're just talking about what the situation is currently in March of 2025. But yeah, I think the basic idea of just this is what it is. Just get your stuff together if you want to do it, roll with it. But do get started because we are in March. And as time passes, it's going to pass quickly. Exams are going to be coming up. So it's not like you're going to have that much time later to deal with it than you do now.
Exactly. So I think it's just to let you know that this is where the market is right now. And so you can make the best decision for yourself about what you want to do.
Yeah, and if you don't understand the OCI process, we have lots of early podcast episodes explaining what is a callback, what is the initial interview, what are they looking for. We will link to those. You can go listen to them. I feel like we have a lot on this topic.
We definitely do. So this is just adding in an addendum for, okay, this is the world we're living in right now.
Yeah, at this exact moment. Who knows what tomorrow will bring?
Exactly. And we did all of these during COVID,
Yeah.
and had to adjust. And that's just how it is. Things are more unpredictable than they used to be.
Yeah, things are definitely changing all the time. And I think a lot of the COVID ones are probably relevant here too, because some of these
Hmm.
interviews, I'm guessing they're probably not going to fly you out for a first round interview in April. Maybe they will, but probably not.
Exactly. And if they are, then you're probably the kind of person who's going to have a million job offers and,
Yeah.
will have to work hard at it. But yeah, it's mostly just.
Yeah, if I were in law school, I would literally go to the career services and be like, how strong of a candidate do you think I am? I don't know if they'll answer that. But part of this is like, you got to get a read on how desirable a candidate are you? And should you just take the first thing that comes along? Are you going to be totally safe waiting? I think these are the hard decisions here.
And I think you have to be realistic and you have to hear the answer and you have to not take it personally because when someone tells you "Well, you're not going to be the strongest candidate, and so these places you really, really want are going to be a reach, and here's where I think is more realistic," hear that. And it doesn't mean there isn't a way for you to get to where you want to get to long term, but you are where you are right now. And it's better to be prepared and be realistic.
Right. And there's sometimes situations where we might be working with someone and they get an offer and they're not sure if they should take it. And we're like, you should definitely take this offer. You should thank your lucky stars that this fell out of the sky for you and take it and move on. You can probably get something that you want more. But obviously, that's a risk, but we think it's a risk that would be reasonable for you to take.
Exactly. And not everyone hears that. And you can only give them your sort of best advice. And if they regret that later, hopefully they'll learn something from when a decision like that comes up again. But I will say, generally in this market, I wouldn't be super picky or I wouldn't be waiting around for a lot of other things. It obviously depends on your personal situation, but generally, having a decent job locked in is going to be worth a lot these days.
I really think that's true. I mean, who knows what anything is going to
Hmm.
look like months and months from now? This is more than a year away. That's a very long time, like at this point in
Yes.
time, to try to
Every
predict.
day, every day is a very long time.
Yeah,
So a year just sounds like a
like
very long time.
very. And this goes back to what we've talked about before, too, is you shouldn't be applying to jobs you don't want.
Yes,
You know,
exactly. Or
like,
you will not take.
yeah, if there's a job where you're like, I would not take this job, or I would be very sad if I had to take this job. At this point, don't even apply to it. We're so early in the process that you should not be applying to things that you would be like completely bummed out if you had to do.
Let's say that you get an offer for the first job you applied to. I feel like you should be prepared to take it.
I totally agree.
Don't otherwise, like you said, don't apply. So I always think that's strange and that comes up a lot. But that's not how the world works right now.
No, I agree. I don't want to say it's insulting to turn it down, but I don't think it looks super great. I know sometimes, at least with judges, schools really pressure people to take the first offer they get, and it's like a big deal if you turn them down. I don't think firms are quite like that, but it's not what anybody wants. The ideal is you apply for jobs you're excited for, you
Yeah,
get the offer, you take the offer, the firm's excited about you, you're excited about them. That's what we're going for here, ideally.
I agree. And I do think that this idea that this one might be better, I just think you'll never know. So
Right.
I think there's something to be said for taking the job and not having to worry about it for the next 6 months when everyone else is applying.
That sounds great to me. You can just
Yeah.
relax. You're like, I've already locked this down. I've got my everything dialed in. You guys have fun spending all this time and energy doing all these interviews. I'm already done. I think that would be
y-
amazing.
Yeah. And I tell students that all the time.
Well, and the other thing is it actually legitimately frees up a lot of time and energy for you to do something else, whether that's study more or get involved in an organization or do pro bono work. There's so many things that you could be spending time on. Why would you want to be spending them stressing out about getting a summer job?
I agree. I think it just takes a lot of pressure off. So
Yeah.
that's something to keep in mind versus, oh, well, there's another firm that's really my dream. And you have no idea if that would be a better job or not.
Yeah, no, I've worked like dream jobs that were nightmares and other ones where I was like, whatever, this seems fine. And I actually really enjoyed it.
And you can make a different decision next time. This is the first one or the second one.
Yeah, this is not necessarily your permanent position for life. Everyone knows that. Really, if you get any type of job offer here, probably just be happy about it. Take it, move on.
I agree.
All right, well, any final thoughts you'd like to share?
My final thought is I'd also really suggest staying in your own lane on this. I think there's a lot of chatter right now between law students, and I hear a lot, but my classmates are all locking things in or they're doing X and Y. And I always say, you actually have no idea. It's just something you heard or something they're saying. You don't know all the facts. And so I would say kind of stay out of all of that chatter, focus on your goals, where you're applying, what your plan is, stick with it and do your absolute best to stay out of it because they're just going to make you nervous and you have no idea what's really going on. So we've talked about this before about staying in your lane, but I think it's especially important these days.
I think that's totally true, and particularly we can probably drop on Reddit and have people talking about things. It's like you have no idea if those are even real people. Maybe there's
Mhm.
good advice there, maybe there's good information, maybe there's not. But yeah, the more you can just focus on your thing, and okay, it's out in the world and whatever happens to it, that's all you can do.
Exactly.
All right, Sadie, well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me back.
My pleasure. With that, we are out of time. For more career help and the opportunity to work one on one with us, check out careerdicta.com or visit lawschooltoolbox.com. Thanks for watching, and please give us a like and subscribe. See you soon.